I'm Reed Collins. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. A hypnotic rhythmic chant of 16 words has replaced LSD and other drugs for some in New York's East Village. On 2nd Avenue and 1st Street is a storefront in which a Swami has set up shop. There, his American disciples are learning about Krishna consciousness.
Someone told you the story, you wouldn't believe it. Here he is. He's 70 years old. He has no money. He has no contacts. He has none of the things that makes for success. He's starting an effort, and it turns into an international movement.
I want to bring a revolution against materialistic civilization. That is my ambition, so that the whole world may be happy.
Prabhupada came to America in an extraordinary time.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper.
Everyone was questioning. Everyone was searching for a better way of life.
Turn on, tune in, drop out.
Timothy Leary came along with the drug bandwagon, but that wasn't good enough. We wanted an alternate reality that wasn't drug-induced.
And suddenly this new force from the East was coming in. People began to look towards India.
There was a sense in us that the ancients knew something, that there was a goodness inherent in men, and there was a wisdom.
The Prophet got here right at that historical moment in time. He walked right into the middle of it.
He was such a curiosity. I mean, just to look at him was just an amazement. Wow.
He was a person that seemed to be experiencing a state of happiness that came from some place that they knew nothing about and never had any access to. And so they were intrigued.
He says this movement is meant to bring about a revolution in the life of a misdirected civilization. Prabhupada brought forward the great culture and the great teachings of those who came before him.
Everyone is thinking, I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm European, I'm Australian, but I'm not this body. I am spirit soul.
If I see this person, this soul, struggling just like I'm struggling in my body, then all of a sudden we're family. And I have a reason to love you. That's deep.
He challenged the very premise of our material life. And for many of us, that was exactly what we needed to hear.
Our mission is to see everyone become happy. We don't want to see that we exploit somebody else and I become happy. No. We want to see everyone happy, but they do not know how to become happy. I was simply loitering on the street of New York. Seeing the people around you. Without any friend, without any means, practically just like a vagabond.
Prabhupada was staying in an office building, moving from one office to another.
Coldest winter in memory. The states of New York, federal disaster areas, 4 to 8 more inches tonight.
He had no idea what snow would be like. He never saw snow.
My ambition was to start a temple here in New York.
He was writing so many letters back to India, to industrialists asking for help or support. And he didn't receive one letter of encouragement or one letter of offer to help.
Here he was, 70 years old, and he's a stranger in a strange land.
Now that's a hammer.
Something to be proud of.
Hey, you're all right.
What can I do? These people are after me and why that illicit sex, and how they will accept it, how they will understand the philosophy. They will say, please go home.
You have to imagine what it must have been like for him growing up in the 19th century in colonial India. The image of America was what was presented in Life magazine, and of this monstrous industrialized nation, rugged individualism and questioning authority. To think about bringing a message of self-control, of minimizing needs, of love for Krishna, love for God, must have been daunting. And yet that's what he had to do. Having been requested by his guru, go to the West and speak Krishna's message in the English language, spread this teaching around the world.
Some of my books, Srimad Bhagavatam, and I was personally selling these books to the booksellers with great difficulty. New York is a very expensive city, but I'm not there. The whole stock and my typewriter, my table cloth, everything was stolen. In this way, I become very much depressed. And I was going to the shipping company when the next ship is going to India.
He did it 2 or 3 times. The clerk at the shipping counter, he asked him, well, Swamiji, you keep asking when the boat's going back, but you never actually go.
I'm not very much hopeful that I wrote one poetry. Krishna, why you have brought me in this country? What can I do? But because you have brought me here, must be there is some purpose. All right, make me dance as you like.
Traditionally, Swami's yogis, Zen masters all moved uptown to the rich and were sponsored and funded by the rich, and you would find Krishnamurti living in elegant apartments on the Upper East Side with drawing rooms and French furniture, and here was Bhaktivedanta like in the depths of Calcutta, where the hippies were and where the acid heads were, and the freaks and the amphetamine heads and the meth monsters. So it seemed like he was actually bringing some kind of ray of song and light to the right place, the lower depths where it was needed.
Rather than being a hippie, I was more of a seeker, a spiritual seeker, because I didn't have long hair and I didn't really identify with the alternative and revolutionary movement. But there was something inside me that was searching for something else. The way I first met Prabhupada was I was on a crosstown bus in Manhattan on Grand Street and ran into a person that I knew, and this person on a scrap piece of paper gave me an address, and he said, "This is the address of an Indian Swami. He's lecturing 3 times a week, and I think you should go there." When I first met Prabhupada, I was very impressed with the fact that he was elderly and that he was very learned and that he was alone, and that made me feel like I really had to help.
I was wandering in the street and some of the boys saw me and gradually they came to me. Then I asked Mukunda to find an apartment.
I went to the newsstand that carries the Village Voice and I saw an advertisement for 26 2nd Avenue.
There had been a gift shop, Matchless Gifts. They were going to take the sign off the window after he told them, no, this is what we have is matchless gifts.
There was usually not more than about 7 or 8 people there. And some of them were seekers and hippies, and others were just coming to pick up on the vibes. And it was just kind of a motley assortment of people.
I just came in, and I was tired, and they said, if you're tired, go to sleep, lay down here.
And it's the first day?
Uh-huh.
One thing which usually happens, those who come like this, they come and they just never go. Once you come, you stay. Because the Swami has something which you are looking for.
They haven't got that peace and of mind or peace of the world which they are anchoring.
We thought that Prabhupada was a sincere person, devoid of hypocrisy, which people, especially young people, really do not like. And we didn't see any evidence of hypocritical teachings in anything that Prabhupada taught or anything that was part of his persona.
The marvelous thing about Prabhupada was that he was so, no other word but loving. He accepted them, he welcomed them into the temple.
Plus he could cook like nobody's business. You know, the food was a slam dunk.
They came for love feast. And every Sunday I was giving nice food stall, at least 200 men. And daily at least 15, 20. I was cooking myself.
So not only was it delicious and healthy, but it would be something even sacred.
In the Gita, Krishna has told us what he wants us to eat, namely fresh fruits and grains. And so we have a very delicious meal here, very cheap. It goes a long way, it's quite easy to prepare, and we have a lot of fun.
When the first love feast occurred in the Bowery, Prabhupada's demeanor was as a very affable and happy host, and he seemed to always be smiling and encouraging people to take more and more and more and more. He was like a friend, and he was giving a party, and it was his party, and he just wanted everyone to be happy.
Prabhupada standing in line for the bathroom with the young men and serving them and washing the pots until someone finally asked after some time, maybe we could help you?
He put up with no nonsense, but he didn't expect them to be perfect. He expected them, if they wanted to stay, to make some effort.
We're here to learn. That's what we're doing. And we also, we have jobs to perform. We recently purchased a couple of mimeograph machines. And that's helping our printing.
Most of my students, they were under the spell of this LSD, but they are given up everything. They don't eat meat, they don't want wine, they don't want cigarettes, nothing.
Prabhupada laid down the law. If you really want to progress in spiritual life, this is the bare minimum. Live a clean life, chant every day, and you'll see the results.
My mission is to preach the philosophy of chanting Hare Krishna. This transcendental vibration is equally appealing to everyone without any question of language, nationality, creed or caste, because it is coming forth from the depth of the soul.
The first thing they did for us was give us our method of chant, which is so powerful that it will work for anyone.
If I meditated on the word Raymond, that wouldn't be the same at all. The word Krishna is God.
You're singing, you're dancing, your mind is fully engaged in thinking about God. What more can there be? This is the full aim of any kind of yoga.
Anyone who chants Hare Krishna, have you got the whole chant?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Some of the drug followers, they are functioning high on a low level, and we are functioning high, and we are functioning low on a high level. You get that? They're functioning high. They're this feeling, this sensual.
We had no idea about anything. Looking back at what we were, and the kinds of people that Prabhupada was trying to spread this movement through, I mean, we were a sorry bunch.
There was some arrangement for my going to England after my college education to become barrister. My father refused. No. My father wanted me to become like this. Know everything, what is going on. He never wanted me to be a worldly man, earning money. He never wanted. We were sleeping, father was doing arati, eating. Puja was his main business. I requested my father, Father, give me this deity I shall worship. So father purchased for me little Krishna, Radha, and I was imitating. The torch, the grain of life, is not man-made. It is sent by God. It is God's mercy. This is not comfort.
Historically, India is a place where it was the normal life for everyone to live in harmony with God's will. It was a culture where the focus of everything was so much in devotion to Krishna.
That spiritual culture of India acknowledges that throughout history, humanity has always needed spiritual revival at different moments. 500 years ago, the pioneer of Krishna devotion, the great teacher, Sri Chaitanya, appeared into the troubled world of 1500s India.
The movement of Sri Chaitanya was a movement of sacred sound, and people would gather in the street and they would sing and dance.
Chaitanya decided to take his bhakti movement, his devotional movement, to all the corners of India. He had inspired thousands, if not millions of people to take up the chanting of the holy names of Krishna.
And people were trying to understand, well, what is this revolution for? It was for equality of the soul, to understand that we are not these bodies, and that we are all brothers and sisters, children of God. Wherever there's life, there is sacredness.
And in Sankirtan, all people, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Parsi, everyone joined. And they're going street to street, entering in every house. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't say that you chant simply Krishna's name. If you have got your own God, And if you know his name and address, then you chant his name.
Then Prabhupada did something unusual for America. He decided it was time to take the chanting and the music and the dancing out onto the streets as Chaitanya had done 500 years earlier.
They had never seen anything like him before. He was a phenomenon that they had never encountered.
He looked like the Prime Minister of the galaxy.
He was sort of forbidding looking, but when he left, he just took in the world. He was oceanic, and you just couldn't help laughing too.
He didn't even have a proper drum or anything. He would just, whatever he had, just bonk on it just to make a little sound to keep the rhythm. But he had the name. He chanted with so much faith that it just drew a universe of people to him.
At first I heard the symbols, the hand symbols, and I started to follow the sound until I found where they were chanting. And I was struck with wonder that this is extraordinary. This means I don't have to go to India to get a mantra. Here are these ecstatic monks bringing the mantra to me for free.
Reciting the names of Krishna is a tradition that goes far back in India as a way, when recited repetitively with deep spirituality, pulls you into the sphere of Krishna himself.
He understood what could happen if the chanting of Hare Krishna made its appearance on a world stage.
If they take to these chanting, transcendental vibration, the mind will be clear and they see their actual identity.
It's a cleansing of the collective consciousness of society that can unleash all kinds of amazing transformations.
The New York Times took a photograph. The caption was, "Swami's flock finds ecstasy in the park." Prabhupada said the Times of New York was the most important newspaper in the world. This article marked the beginning of my movement.
He asked me about my life, and I told him I had traveled all over Europe. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, you're so young and you've traveled so much?" And I said, "Yes, Swamiji, but none of it made me happy." And he burst into a beautiful smile and said, "Ah, yes, that is required."
I am very glad that Krishna has sent nice boys and girls to help me. I don't blame the hippies. They are disappointed in the modern system of education. They are searching after something sublime.
The thing that's extraordinary about the 60s is that there were so many things being thrown into question The world's in a desperate place. We're destroying the planet. We're destroying one another. There has to be some other solution.
As a young man, Srila Prabhupada was looking for that. He was a Gandhian.
I was a student of Gandhi. In 1920, I joined the non-cooperation movement.
Prabhupada had been attracted to Gandhi's movement because it was a non-violent demonstration of protest against circumstances that were intolerable. But something happens when he meets his spiritual master, and he's reminded that there's another kind of revolution going on that's much more important, for a higher purpose, not a political end, but a spiritual end.
In 1922, I was taken to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati by one of my friends.
Everything about Bhaktisiddhanta spoke to his spiritual gravitas.
He comes from a line of spiritual teachers that goes back more than 5,000 years.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's core message was, you are the soul. The consciousness animating the body with life. And what is the nature of that life? It's eternal. It's fully self-aware and joyful, blissful.
He said, why don't you preach this message in the Western countries?
This was a very ambitious thought, and Prabhupada understood how ambitious it was.
I talked with him, we'll hear your message. We are dependent country, subjugated. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati refuted my argument. This so-called nationalism or anyism, they are all temporary. The real need is self-realization.
That's a universal message, and it's meant to be shared with the rest of the world.
I was so much struck with wonder, I could understand that here is the proper person who can give a real religious idea.
What is an epiphany? What happens that something completely transforms a life?
I would have immediately joined, but now I'm married. So many responsibilities, it will be injustice. But I accepted him as my spiritual master in my heart. At that time I was running my big pharmacy. I was a very well-known man as the proprietor of the pharmacy. My business was flourishing.
Then there's another more urgent request from his guru, this time in the form of a letter.
Try to preach whatever you have learned from me to the people in English. That will do good to you and to the people to whom he shall preach. That is my instruction. And then he passed away in 1936.
The stakes were now raised. energies would become even more focused on making it happen one way or another, as impossible as it was.
I started Back to Godhead magazine, 1944, on the birthday of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati.
The articles that he wrote analyzed how human greed had led to World War II, how conflict between peoples and between nations can be traced back to spiritual ignorance.
The fought and so many died, and after death there was no distinction who is Hindu or who is Muslim. The municipal men, they gathered together in piles to throw them somewhere. Sometimes I was dreaming. My spiritual master, he is calling, and I was falling.
His children were grown and in school or married, and it was time.
He finally accepted the sannyas order.
Baba. Baba means father. I am his son, he is my father. And I am the last child of Prabhupada. Youngest and last. He was a man of personality and dignity. I was stunned and I was shocked at that time when I heard it. That my father is leaving.
You advise me, please take care of your mother and your family.
Going to Vrindavan was a way of harnessing energies. He's there contemplating what's needed to bring Krishna to the world.
This is very much a part of the Indian culture from ancient times. At the end of life, one will focus on the most important work of life, realizing who I am in relationship with the divine person.
It was an intense period of writing, getting those first 3 books of the Srimad Bhagavatam published.
He was able to synthesize a vast library of Sanskrit wisdom texts down to their essence and transpose that into a language that people of the 20th and 21st centuries can understand.
In this one text, the entire expanse of creation is described.
This book has the potential to lead a revolution in consciousness, which he felt was the need of the hour.
So after servicing 3 parts, then Guru Maharaj gave me indication, and then now you can start forever.
Up till now, nothing has been done. So let me try at least. It is better late than never.
He said that he would like to go to America. I was surprised. I said, Swamiji, don't go there. You are too old to go, and it will be too cold for you.
I said, are you crazy? The old man, you are going to die. Who will look after you? What will you do then?
Still he insisted. So I said, all right. So I made arrangement for him to go by Jaladuta.
We're talking with Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta.
Hello, Swamiji?
Yes.
What is the perfection of this life?
The perfection of this life is to understand oneself. What I am. This is the beginning. Why I am suffering. If there is any solution of this suffering.
So, know yourself.
Yes.
Know yourself.
Yes.
You know the Hare Krishna chant?
No, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
We were getting a lot of publicity. Alan Coleman came, wanted to make the record. There was a station, WBAI, alternative radio, the top show for interesting talk and alternative music. And one night, he played the record non-stop from 10 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning.
Part of the radicalness of Prabhupada's mission was really upsetting the social apple cart by sending students into the streets to chant and dance. That's not considered normal behavior. And yet, it's gripping. You can't remain indifferent.
We used to make these leaflets called Stay High Forever. People really got a kick out of those. People would look at that and say, wow, he is high. He's so high, he's trying to keep himself down just from the mantra.
More and more, these young Americans, they came to me. Then I registered this Krishna Consciousness Society in 1966.
If you can think about what you might call chutzpah, this was incredible. Incorporating an international society when you're living out of a storefront and you have no resources whatsoever. They didn't have any idea what he was doing, and he assured them, well, this is what we're going to be.
And he would turn the globe, and he was studying all the countries of the world. And sometimes he would say, Brahmananda, you shall go to Russia. Gaurasunder, you go to Japan. And his plan was to send people all over the world. But you have to realize we only had about 12 teenagers.
So he was looking into the eyes of each one of us, saying, I want each one of you to open a temple somewhere. And at that time, I was so young and so impetuous. And I was only 16 years old. And I just said, even the girls? Prabhupada looked at me and he said, there is no difference between the boys and the girls. When you are teaching Krishna consciousness, there is no difference.
When I was leaving for the West Coast, I was walking out the door, Prabhupada said, just while you're in the West Coast, try to start a center. And somehow that simple phrase rang in my mind over and over again.
A car pulled in, and it was Michael and Jan. They had just driven out from New York. And the reason they came was to tell us about this Swami they had met.
They thought I was pretty cool because of the way I was after I had met the Swami and I had taken initiation. So they got enthusiastic and decided to help found a temple in the San Francisco area because they were involved with Ken Kesey and the movement that he espoused.
San Francisco in those days was the epicenter of the cultural breakthrough that we call the hippie movement now.
And in this small neighborhood, suddenly there were over 100,000 young people.
One of the wonderful aspects of the hippies was they were searching, they were seekers. They actually wanted something better than what was being presented to them.
The Avalon Ballroom was an old-time dance venue, and every weekend they would hold rock and roll dances there.
The rock dances were phenomenal. They were inexpensive, great performers, and we all knew each other.
We had no money to find a place, an establishment for the Swami. If the Grateful Dead would agree to do a charity concert with us, then we could raise the money.
We were able to actually get these great bands together to donate for free.
So we sent tickets to the Swami to come from New York. The Swami comes down, Ralph the dog is running around. Immediately we see this person. He is so different than anybody we've ever seen. He wasn't an old man to us. He seemed so fresh and young and youthful. It became a very big event. It was called the Montreux Rock Dance, and Timothy Leary came. And with Allen Ginsberg there to introduce him, it was the perfect setup.
We were afraid the Hells Angels were going to trash us, so we made them our security.
The main thing of the evening was Prabhupada speaking, and he spoke before this huge gathering. And even though it was a Sunday night, the place was packed with people.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. If we chant this vibration of transcendental sound with devotion and with attention, that is the highest type of meditation and yoga.
And then all the bands came on stage and started out spontaneous kirtan. It was like electricity through this hall. Everyone felt it. I could see that he really liked it. He loved it. He was into it. He saw that small speck of seeking in everyone in that room and made it very big. Oh, my estimation of the Swami increased a millionfold.
He embodied spirituality, and his disciples wanted it. They said, "Oh, we want some of that. Whatever it is he's having, I want that." So this is the Guru.
So many hippies were really in love with Prabhupada and in love with the devotees and considered Hare Krishna to be the hippie religion at this point.
If everyone in the United States believed in Krishna to the extent that you do, what would happen to this country? How would it be transformed?
They'll be very happy and peaceful. There will be no more hippies.
What would you describe as a hippie? Someone just smokes.
You know better than me. Something extraordinary.
And he sat with us every day, morning and evening, telling us about Krishna and the philosophy.
Prabhupada, who's Krishna?
Krishna is a historical personality, but he is the supreme personality of God. Sometimes people object that God cannot come as incarnation. But we don't agree to that point. If we say that God cannot come, that means God becomes subjected to our order. he is so great and independent, then why he shall not come? If he likes, he can come. If he is actually the great, whatever he likes, he can do. That is God's solution.
We had a wonderful life there. It was just wonderful. It couldn't be any better. It was as good as it could get. I mean, it was like a family. Then one day, he was trembling all over. Swamiji had a heart attack. He was, from all appearances, leaving this world. And so the devotees were fervently praying all night in San Francisco, all night in New York. We were praying to Krishna, please don't take him away. He's just come here. Please, we need more time.
We never had the feeling that he was ailing and old, but that he was the leader of the movement, and we just depended on him. We couldn't imagine what life would be like without him.
The heart was so weak. Health is broken. I was very sick. I thought, now I shall not exist. So let me go to Vrindavan and die there.
We were really distraught because we felt if he goes to India, he's going to stay there. And we didn't know what to do.
So Srila Prabhupada told us, just go on chanting Hare Krishna. We will be all packed up together. You will be chanting here, and I will be chanting there, and this vibration will circulate around the planet.
And he turns to the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta and says, here are a bunch of people, they're not completely trained in our theology and practices, but they're very sincere and they're very enthusiastic. This is your movement, they are your people, please take care of them.
We were lost. We just couldn't accept the idea that he might never come back. For 5 months we grieved.
Then we received word that Prabhupada was better. We got him back. Now we had to step it up. We had to learn as much from him as we could.
From the outset, our intention had been,
let's do something really big for Prabhupada. And there wasn't much bigger in 1968 than the Beatles.
We got news that the Beatles had been in Rishikesh, in India, studying with a guru there. And then Life magazine came out with this huge spread. Their new records came out with all these songs about Eastern philosophy that we had loved so much. So I came up with this idea. Go to London and start a center for Prabhupada and meet these Beatles. The first thing that we realized when we got to England is that in order to stand out, for people to recognize us in this huge metropolis, we're going to have to shave our heads. Up to that time, the thought of shaving my curly hair was atrocious to me. I didn't want to do it. Nor did we want to wrap these bed sheets around us. Yellow was the color, our first color. We just thought yellow would really stand out in London. We named ourselves Radha Krishna Temple, the rock group. We began getting engagements at rock concerts. We used to almost daily go down to the Apple offices and give the staff and everyone there the food, or books. Unbeknownst to us, George Harrison had got a hold of the Swami's record called Krishna Consciousness. And he told me later that he was listening to it almost every day.
Through the Beatle experience, I'd experienced so many things and met so many people, but I realized there was nothing actually that was giving me a buzz anymore. I wanted something better. I remember thinking, I'd love to meet somebody who will really impress me.
He had memorized the Swami's introduction to the album. He knew it word for word.
As living spiritual souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities, but due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now polluted. In this concept of life, we are all trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in complexities.
One day I wound up in the Apple Records offices, and George Harrison was there. He saw me sitting in a group of people in the very back. He opened the door, walked through all these people, and came over to me and said, "Where have you been? I've been waiting to meet you." George came down to see us where we were living in our warehouse in Covent Garden.
He so much appreciated the Hare Krishna mantra that he immediately said, let's make a 45 record.
So we all went over to Abbey Road Studios, made that record, Hare Krishna mantra. None of us had ever done anything like this before. Paul McCartney was there, and he volunteered to mix it from the control booth.
A feature on us, and we were able to send a report back to Srila Prabhupada with the headlines, Krishna Consciousness Startles London.
I became quite friendly at one point with Swami Bhaktivedanta, who formed the Krishna temple. They'd call me up and say, come to the temple, the Swami's here and he'd love to see you. And I'd be like going through some private nightmare or something, and I think, how can I go to the temple? And I'm like this. But then I'd go, and I'd always walk out of there thinking, oh, thank you, Lord.
And he said to me at a certain time, I want to do songs for Krishna. We were backstage in Apple, and he says, here's this song, and he plays My Sweet Lord.
Hare Krishna.
The music really was the key that opened the door into the yoga and the Vedic scriptures, which is really the foundation of everything. You know, it gave some sort of backbone to my life. Krishna said, there's no time when we didn't exist, and there'll be no time when we cease to exist. The only thing that changes is the body.
When George introduced this, it went worldwide.
Life was an adventure. He'd call me in and say, we got invitations to Paris, Bombay, Sydney, and one just arrived from Nairobi. Where do you think we should go? By then I knew to say the wildest place. I think we should go to Nairobi. I was thinking the same thing. He always wanted to go where there was least development, where he could contribute the most.
The energy that he displayed was unimaginable. I was in my early 20s and I could not keep up with him.
And then around the late 60s to the early 70s, ISKCON just exploded. People were joining left and right.
He managed to manage everything through his letters.
Prabhupada would be receiving mail from hundreds of students, and he would personally write to every one of them. Prabhupada never got a letter that he didn't answer.
Receiving letters from Srila Prabhupada is what probably kept us going. And whenever a letter came from Prabhupada, it was usually read out loud.
And some of those letters are like 2 or 3 pages long, where he answers every aspect. He'll say, do this, then you do that, then you do this. And by the way, for Melanie's cough, you should give her this kind of syrup. And, you know, every detail. Many times, I would be whispering to someone in the hallway, no, you can't see him right now. I would hear, let them come in.
How are you? You look better. You are looking better, brighter. And I saw you leaving last week.
He would see whoever came. Prabhupada had time for everyone.
The only thing is that we will have to delay the loan because for the next 3 months, all our money will be used to print these 17 books.
Castable books, then loan. However, we cannot hold up printing, that is not possible.
As the head of the American BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, I was the person that Prabhupada would say, okay, now send money here, now send money there. So I was watching Prabhupada build this Hare Krishna movement through his book sales.
One has to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the grace of the Supreme Personality of God. He reveals. He cannot be understood by speculation. Athapite deva padambujaddam.
He would translate usually after everyone else was asleep. Say from 11 till 3, 4 in the morning.
Can you imagine at his age translating so many books, the Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is like a huge work, translating 18,000 verses, writing a commentary for each one of them. The intensity and the urgency and the compassion that comes through every single line. His words carry so much power. It's a full expression of his heart that comes through.
He
really transformed people's lives with his very straightforward translations and commentaries and purports. Very scholarly presentation, in fact. And he wanted the intellectual class of men to, as his words, to examine and explore these texts. And he had all kinds of people examine and explore them.
The first necessity is that you should be self-sufficient. That is God's arrangement.
Prabhupada advocated living in harmony with nature and having self-sustaining farms, and to also take advantage of all of the gifts that God has given us and not try to artificially change them, but take them as they come, as a gift from nature.
I have traveled all over the world. There is so much land vacant that if we produce food grain, then we can feed 10 times as much population as at the present moment. There is no question of scarcity.
He set up simple living and high thinking as a standard and showed that if you simply had an acre of land and took care of it nicely and you protected the animal, like the cow especially, that you could be self-sustaining and that everything.
Where people went, there were Hare Krishnas. Comedians would always tell jokes about the Hare Krishnas in the airports.
Dinner in first class tonight will be bean sprouts and broccoli. Fine. And will that be chanting or non-chanting? Chanting, please.
Krishna became a household word and became part of the cultural scene.
You with the banjo. Can you help me? I have lost my sense of direction.
Have you tried Hare Krishna?
No.
Let me ask you, in reincarnation, does that mean my soul would pass to another human being, or would I come back as a moose or an aardvark or something?
Take our literature, read it over, and think about it.
I left the supermarket in a really bad mood. And then I met these very nice people, the Hare Krishnas. They sang me a song, they gave me some rice. It was just the little pickup I needed. You know, if I hadn't had to make dinner, I might have gotten into their van.
I understand, but do you feel that in the Bible and the Quran and so forth, don't you run into conflicts at all or contradictions in those particular philosophies?
No, I don't find any conflict because the ultimate goal is God. So you have to understand God and try to love Him. So you can go through any religious process. If the goal is attained, that you understand what is God and you try to love Him, then your life is perfect.
When something was incorrect, something was misleading to Prabhupada, he would boldly speak out about it.
Why have to accept birth? Why have to accept death? Why have to accept disease? Why have to accept old age? These are the problems. These are the problems, and these problems can be solved in human form of life.
He was fearless and he was bold.
For years, he kept saying, I want to go to communist countries. Everyone said, no, that's not possible. You just can't go there. We just passed through the missile crisis in Cuba. To give a visa to Americans to travel to Russia in 1971 was just unheard of. I don't know how it happened.
When I was in Moscow airport, as soon as they found Bhagavad Gita, they called police, custom checking. The policeman was kind enough. He said, not serious offense. Don't send him in the concentration camp.
As we would pass churches, he would see that there were armed guards in front of the churches. Nobody was going in and out. Prabhupada said after, the ordinary citizens of Russia are spiritual, but because of their leaders, they have no access to God anymore. I went to a bank to change some money. Outside the bank, there were two boys, and they came up to me. Do you have any Beatles records? I said, no, but the Beatles met my guru, and he's back in my hotel room. Wow! And they came back with me to meet Prabhupada. But this Russian boy just drank in every word that Prabhupada said. He asked the most cogent questions right away. Who is God? Who am I? What am I here for? What is real activity? And Prabhupada explained all of that to him in such concise detail. He convinced him completely, beyond any doubt, that he should take on this mission and take the greatest risk you can take.
Religious books were completely forbidden. And in fact, if anybody was even caught producing a religious book, he could be executed.
I gave him my Bhagavad Gita, and from that text, he was able to copy it and translate it and spread it throughout all of Russia during communist times.
Some of the books were smuggled into the country, so they would make photocopies of them. I went to one flat and saw how all the devotees were sitting with photographed copies of each page, and they were stitching the books, putting them together, and going out.
And from that one little seed, thousands of Krishna devotees came up. We all got a letter in late September with a list of 20 names. I want these people to come and join me in India. I just looked on the list, my name was on it, I was over the moon. India at last.
And he brought back Westerners wearing saffron, shaved heads, seekers, sacred clay, and women in saris. I mean, this was an incredible sight.
Americans, Europeans, boys and girls. And it just took India by storm. India had never seen anything like this, these sadhus from the West.
People would come up with it and they'd go like this to our skin and look at it like maybe it was going to, this whiteness was going to come off,
The whole town was just suffused with Krishna consciousness. The entire town was on fire with devotion.
Prabhupada brought his followers back to India because he wanted to revive and tell the people of India that the greatest treasure is the heritage of your own country. But you've forgotten it. You've neglected it. I've brought these people back to remind you of what you have forgotten.
India is famous with a spiritual culture. So when he came with so many white-skinned disciples, it was for India, they felt proud for that. Because our culture, Western world appreciate.
And then we started putting on major festivals. We got the grounds in the heart of Bombay and built a huge, elaborate tent. Several million people over that 10 days got to sit and listen to Swamiji speak.
It's the Rathayatra Festival coming to the heart of London from Jagannath Puri, India. There, it's a 2,000-year-old festival attended annually by over 1 million people. Here at Marble Arch, the number of worshippers may be less, but they are no less devoted to finding their eternal happiness in Krishna consciousness.
The Rath Yatra festival is an ancient Indian tradition that Prabhupada introduced to the West. The deities spend the whole year in the temple, and this is the day that they come out of the temple so everybody can see them. People seem to really respond to that idea.
It was a victory for Prabhupada, this Rath Yatra going right down, like the main byways there in London to Trafalgar Square. And he just danced and walked the entire way. This was conquering London, conquered the British. When he was young, when he first met his spiritual master, he was into the Gandhi movement. He wasn't into British rule. So now he came and took over Britain.
So young and unskilled in managing big things. They were going on real fast. He started with 2 temples. By the time he came to India, there were nearly 50 centers worldwide. That means dedicated centers where devotees lived and preached Krishna consciousness.
And it was an amazing time. We were excited, and we were getting revolutionaries, people who wanted to change the world. His students were not all hippies. There were a lot of people of substance and accomplishment, but spiritually we were all children. And he knew that. He also knew that this was an emergency. However much time he had left, he had to establish the foundation of an international society. And he was very confident that if we follow our principles and maintain our purity, we will be successful.
A guru inspires, teaches, tries to set in a positive direction, but ultimately every one of us live out our own religious life.
Mistakes can be our best way of learning anything. And Prabhupada knew that there were going to be mistakes. And gradually, as we learned how to distribute Prabhupada's books, money came in. And some people who were salesmen decided, as salesmen sometimes do, stretch the truth a little bit. And people will tell Prabhupada, you know, Prabhupada, they're saying when they distribute a book that the money's going to Bangladesh. And then Prabhupada said, if that's what you're saying, that's where it has to go. And he said, you need to learn how to get people motivated to buy the book by convincing them how this book will help them. That's the purity of a spiritual salesman. So we were genuinely motivated, but we were a little aggressive.
Many would consider members of the Hare Krishna sect to be little more than a noisy nuisance. They've been labelled dangerous religious fanatics and lumped together with cults, but the Krishnas say they're simply misunderstood.
They are the mafia of the religious world. As a matter of fact, they have ties to the organized crime families of the United States.
Now, that's a serious charge.
It sure is.
But are you saying that crime is an organized planned program of the Hare Krishna?
Yes.
The scholars called it the NRMs, the New Religious Movement.
The story you're about to see is a parent's nightmare, the story of a family whose daughter disappeared. When they finally found her, they had to fight just to get to talk with her because she had joined a cult.
Thousands and thousands of young people leaving their former religions and joining the NRMs. The parents and the religious leaders, there was a tremendous backlash.
Cheryl Zimmerer is 18. She tried university and a job in Treasury before leaving both to join the sect a few months ago. Today, after her initiation by the spiritual master, she says she's found true happiness. But her mother and her aunt are not so sure.
She's given up university to do this, given up everything, she's not working. And I can't see any future in it at all. What's going to happen in 10 years' time?
Is worried that, in fact, all the things you're saying are largely due to brainwashing. Are you worried that she's worried?
I'm so worried that she's worried, but I don't think she should be.
These parents became alarmed.
Because they're actually kidnapping people. You'd be walking in the street and they would just throw you in a car. And they'd say, your parents are in the car behind us. We need to talk to you. And they put you in a hotel. Parents were hiring people who would kidnap us and try to deprogram us. So there was a whole business started of deprogramming.
You think that these groups have techniques of mind control that you feel are dangerous?
Yes, Hare Krishna is one of the main ones. And they use the same technique. It's no different from Guyana. Jim Jones is no different from Hitler.
The anti-cult movement developed this theory that anybody that would join one of these movements could not possibly have done so voluntarily. It had to be the victim of mind control, that they were brainwashed. Of course, Prabhupada admitted many times, yes, we are brainwashing. The brain is very dirty and we are cleaning it. This was a case, People versus Murphy. Criminal charges brought against two devotees in the Supreme Court of New York City. This was an attack on everything that we stand for, on the fundamental principles of the Bhagavad Gita, that the Bhagavad Gita is a tool of mind control.
Prabhupada said, our defense statement is the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the nectar of devotion, the nectar of instruction. He said, you present all of our books. He said, let the case go on for years. But the more he got attacked, the more energized he became. He was a fighter. Prabhupada loved a good fight.
In the end, Justice Leahy of the New York Supreme Court said, quote, they were reaping the benefits of a bona fide religion with roots in India that go back thousands of years.
We have a right, an absolute right in this country to believe in anything that we want. This is always considered to be a watershed event. It's mentioned in all the law review articles. It's mentioned in all the articles on the history of the anti-cult movement. It's had an impact all over the country. You know, that was a big victory for Prabhupada.
If you kindly become Krishna conscious and chant and dance in ecstasy, emotional love of God, the whole world will follow you and it will be Vaikuntha. There will be no more trouble. Thank you very much.
Prabhupada believed that Krishna's love would supersede any obstacle. The idea that God's love is more powerful than anything else, and that it will come like a tsunami.
Astonished me. And there was never a moment when I would walk up to his door to go in when I wouldn't just be totally full of excitement, that I never knew what was going to happen the moment I opened that door.
Prabhupada was quite unlike any teacher we'd ever known. There was no gap between what he spoke and what he lived.
He shared his particular love for his followers, and they shared love with each other. That is the heart of what holds his movement together. And that was his last request. If you love me, please work with each other, despite differences.
My dear boys and girls, my warning is already there. I had a severe heart attack. So, the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is now in your hand. Here I am sitting, but my heart is always hankering after the Vrindavan, that sacred place.
Not at all disturbed in his consciousness by the breakdown of his body. You could see here's a person that really understands he's not this body. I was there when he was still translating the Bhagavatam 2 weeks before he left the planet.
We have got our eternal life, and in eternal life we have got immense measure of freedom, immense measure of power. I came to your country single-handed with these pair of symbols. Now, you are so many chanting Hare Krishna. That is my success.
Everything is active, moving by the supreme desire of Krishna. This consciousness is Krishna consciousness.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Rama. One more time, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna,